the world. So this started the greatest mass migration of people ever. 50,000 people a year were coming to California for years. And a lot of those people were Chinese.
And were they finding gold, all those people?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely. And what you found, you kept. They called this Gold Mountain.
Whatever you found was yours.
That's exactly it. And we're going to agitate it. Go ahead and do that. Back in 1848, when gold was first discovered, these miners were finding an ounce of gold per person per day.
Wow.
By 1849, it had dropped down to a half an ounce, though. And by 1850, they were down to a quarter of an ounce. Yeah, it had changed dramatically. Now, in 1850, there were very few Chinese here in California. But by 1860, 1/3 of the population of this area was composed of Chinese.
1/3 of the
That's
population.
right.
Wow.
Now, they didn't realize when they got on the boat that they assumed they were going to make an ounce of gold a day. But that had changed dramatically by the time they got here. By 1862, it was pretty much over with. The Chinese started working for the Central Pacific Railroad. So they could do better there than they could panning for gold. That's when I consider the gold rush was basically over. Whoa, there you did it.
Gold. I found
There you
gold.
did it.
That's gold.
That's it. That's it for sure.
Oh my gosh, that's really a piece. Now, how much is this worth, this little piece of gold?
$1.
$1. Wow. It really stands out against the black sand.
It certainly does. Yeah. Once you've seen gold, you'll always know gold.
Okay, I think I'm bitten. The Chinese had to seek their livelihood elsewhere, and they found employment in the construction of the Transcontinental Railroad. Over 10,000 Chinese men paved the way so that track could be laid, uniting the east and west coasts of the United States. The Chinese were so valued for their skill and their courage that railroad agents were going to China to try to recruit even more cheap Chinese labor. At the time, no one thought they'd be able to lay track through the Sierra Nevada mountains. And the fact that the Chinese managed to drill, tunnel, and blast their way through the hard granite in less time than anyone thought possible was a huge accomplishment. The work was done in remote locations, in terrible weather, incredible snowstorms. It was very dangerous work.
After the gold rush, the Chinese, many of whom had been farmers in the Canton River deltas of China, also found that there was a market for their agricultural skills. They made their way to Northern California's river delta, 65 miles northeast of San Francisco. Hidden along the banks of the Sacramento River is a sleepy little town that time seems to have forgotten. A Chinese town that has resisted modern advances. Here in Locke, the year could easily be 1930 or even 1880.
Built in 1915 by and exclusively for the Chinese working in the orchards here, Locke had boarding houses, schools, stores, gambling houses, whorehouses, opium dens, and not a single officer of the law. Today, Locke is registered as a National Historical Place due to the fact that it's the only town in the United States to be built and inhabited solely by Chinese.
There are about 12 Chinese still living here in Locke, and Justine met up with two of them, Ping Li and Connie King. At 88 and 83, their lives have spanned nearly the entire history of the town.
You know, in general, if you look at the big cities in San Francisco or Oakland, some places where they hang up those rose ducks and all that kind, we had it here, only in a smaller scale. And it was quite busy in the 20s in the town, and a lot of children.
Do you remember each other when you were little kids running around Locke? And did you play together? Were you friends when you were little?
I'm older.
Yeah.
I don't play with little girls. Play with the same, my age.
So even though your father was one of the founders and they built Locke, they couldn't own the land that they built the town on, is that correct?
You cannot. That time the law says, no, you can't.
I tried to buy a piece of land. They wouldn't sell to me because I'm Chinese.
And did they say that? Were they
Yeah.
upfront about it? We
Yeah,
cannot
they said,
sell
I'm
you
sorry,
the land
I can't sell it to you because you're Chinese.
because you're Chinese.
But I told them I'm born here, I'm an American citizen, I'm entitled to it. But they said no. Then I saw a little farm, 5-acre farm that I want to buy, and my husband and I thought for sure that we won't be living next to the white people. We can get the little ranch. And then I talked to the man that owned it, and he said, "I'm sorry, Mrs. King, I can't sell it to you because you're Chinese." And that got me a little upset. See? So I've been fighting for my land ever since.
And do you own the house that you live in now?
2004, December 11, 2004, I finally got the land that I wanted all this year. I waited for 55 years.
55 years to own your own land.
I was so worried that I might die before I get the land, but anyway, I got the land before I die anyway.
The prejudice and discrimination that the residents of Locke endured was common to all Chinese in California, and this discrimination only intensified during the Depression of the 1880s, when Caucasian Americans saw Chinese as a threat, given the scarcity of jobs at that time.
Deportation to China was considered, and in 1882, the Exclusion Act was introduced. This denied all rights of citizenship to the Chinese, limiting them to the status of visiting workers. Apart from having no rights to own land, run businesses, get education, or vote, one very cruel law to prevent families settling in America was to disallow wives from joining their husbands. Strangely, other family members might be let in. To enforce these laws, Angel Island was set up as an immigration station. Over a period of 10 years, 175,000 Chinese were held there for interrogation. Lee King Wong remembers at the age of 8, the authorities attempting to separate her from her mother.
My father was not allowed to bring my mother over as his wife. We were taken to Angel Island right away, and Mama and my two sisters and I were taken to the women's barrack, and they locked the barrack door. It was kind of gloomy. It was not a cheerful place. Mama looked at us. She said, "Don't forget, call me Auntie. Call me Yi." We waited around to be interrogated, and they told us that we have to tell the truth, answer the questions, and please do not lie. And of course, they asked questions about Mama. They said, "That lady over there, is she your mother or is she your aunt?" And I said, "She is our aunt." And then the interpreter smiled, and he said, "Little girl, I am going to ask you what is your name." And my little sister was so happy, and she said, "Huh, you don't tell me your name, why should I tell you my name?" And the interpreter started to laugh, and the chief inspector said, all right, I believe you. And so he got a stamp, he stamped the papers and said, "We're gonna tell your papa that, you are fine, and he's gonna be waiting for you in San Francisco." For 40 years, we still pretended that Mama was our aunt. And it was not until 1972, Mama and I went to the attorney. She confessed. And we were kind of worried. And the attorney was so nice. "Oh, don't worry. Oh, we know the story. It's fine. You just go home." So Mama was very happy. She became Mrs. G in 1972.
During the heyday of the gold rush, these immigrant laborers wanted to get rich and go home. But many of them stayed, becoming part of the workforce and creating permanent settlements.
So they stayed and created the granddaddy of all Chinatowns right here in San Francisco.
Justine heads for the heart of Chinatown, Portsmouth Square, to meet 3 young residents, Rosa, Wendell, and Kelvin, who are passionate about their community.
Because it used to be the San Francisco's town square. This is where they held their town halls and their town meetings. But as San Francisco started to expand outward, Chinatown basically took over this place. And now it's also known as Chinatown's living room.
Why Chinatown living room?
It's known as the Chinatown's living room because if you look around the square right now, there's a lot of people just basically hanging out. And the reason for that is because these individuals actually live in really small apartments in Chinatown, and they don't have room to hang out in their apartment, so they come out to the Porcelain Square.